Hey everyone, welcome to the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. Reuben Frank and Dave Zangaro here. Rube, we just got back to our office after leaving the Eagles locker room for the final time in 2024. Locker cleanout day. 31 teams at locker cleanout day are pretty upset. This is the one in the NFL that was not.
Yeah, it's really interesting how the dynamic can be so different. I don't know how many of those locker cleanout days I've been at, and everyone's talking about, I got to be better next year. I got to do this. We got to get this. It's disappointing. And these guys just won a Super Bowl. It's only the second time I've been a part of that. And, being in that room. And it's kind of surreal. And everyone's very subdued. I think everyone's exhausted. These guys haven't slept, and they're certainly not going to sleep tomorrow. But, yeah, there's just this this vibe of the satisfaction of doing something really special and doing it together with guys that you've been fighting with for 7 months now. So it's a really interesting vibe, an interesting atmosphere. Had a chance to talk to a lot of guys, and they're all kind of looking forward to tomorrow and kind of the last step that they'll take together.
Yeah, it is so funny. Like a big topic of conversation in this locker cleanout day is about the parade on Friday and kind of gearing up for that. I think that's why I was so subdued too. I think guys are like kind of resting as much as they can before it's going to be a long Friday.
It is. It's going to be.
Zack Baun was particularly worried about no bathrooms on their buses. So he's a little nervous about that.
It's interesting.
He said he also went back and watched YouTube videos of the last parade to try to mentally prepare for what's about to happen.
So he's watching film.
A little bit. Yeah, I guess that's the student in him is going back and checking out the last parade.
Well, I'm sure anybody who lives on Broad Street would be happy to let Zach use their facilities,
right.
Their modern comfort facilities.
It should be a fun parade. This team earned it. They deserve it. They deserve everything that's coming their way. Already kind of cool driving around South Philly. You see the big banner on the NovaCare welcoming the champs back in. I'm sure that was there when they arrived from the airport. You can see the city's already like preparing for this parade. Obviously they have to. There's the longest line of porta potties I've ever seen on Patterson right now.
There you go, Zach.
I mean, that's pretty quick into I hope he doesn't have to use it by then.
Yeah, it's true.
Like they pull out of the NovaCare and he's like, pull over.
Daddy, I got to go to the bathroom again. Yeah, they're going to have a good time. I think by the time it starts, that's going to be the last thing on Zach's mind.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, it'll be a good time for everyone. If you're out there, enjoy it. Be safe. Rube, let's get into some of what we heard from him, though. Starting with Jalen Hurts, our first chance to speak with him since he was in Disney World and living up the MVP life on the Tonight Show and everything that comes with it. I think it was telling. One of the things he said on Thursday was that the pain of losing a Super Bowl is like winning it is nothing compared to that. So like the pain of losing one is going to stick with him. He was asked on the Tonight Show about his lock screen on his phone. I think that's going to stay there. I mean, I think that loss still drives him.
Yeah, and it was hard not to think about Tom Brady and how he says the only Super Bowls he thinks about are the ones he lost. One of them was to the Eagles, by the way. But yeah, and I get it, and that's his personality in a nutshell. The pain of losing is a lot greater than the joy of winning, and I get it. If you're a competitor, it might take 3 or 4 of these until the joy kind of equals out the pain, because that was a tough one 2 years ago, and he took it hard, and I hope he can enjoy it. It's hard to tell with him. He's so kind of even keel and flatline. It's hard to tell. You rarely see him laugh or smile, but it was kind of cool post game to see him let the veneer down a little bit, and you did see him smile a few times, and it's something that we rarely see.
Mm-hmm.
You rarely see him genuinely just happy. So that was cool.
Yeah, and I think that he said he didn't have any expectations of what it would be like. I find that a little hard to believe because it's like this is a goal that all these players work toward their entire lives. And AJ Brown had a post on Instagram kind of saying like it didn't really it wasn't what he expected. It was like fun for 2 days, but then he realizes like that's like it's more about the journey for him. And I think a lot of the guys end up feeling the same way.
Yeah.
At least the ones that are wired in that way. And I think Jalen certainly fits in that.
Yeah, no question. I heard from some guys say they just didn't know how to react. Like they didn't know how to process it all. And because ever since you're a kid, it's like winning a Super Bowl is such a goal. And then it happens. And it's like, how am I supposed to feel right now? Like, what am I supposed to do? I think it's one of those things that in time, it'll kind of solidify itself, the meaning of it, the importance of it, the context of it. And just so many guys never even get to one. So to win it, I think for most of these guys, when they retire and move on from football, that's when it'll really, really take shape of how rare it is and how meaningful it is.
Yeah. And the other thing Jalen was already talking about is that the other quarterbacks in the league are already getting to start their offseason work. And he feels like he's behind, which is like the perfect psycho type of feelings you want from your quarterback, I think. But it's kind of crazy to think like that the other guys are somehow ahead of him. He just won the Super Bowl and he's thinking that like other guys are getting a leg up because they're able to already start preparing for next year. So I would imagine pretty quickly he will jump back into his prep.
Yeah, I also think there's a lot of value in getting away for a little while, and kind of for anybody who, after such a long, I mean, these guys have been grinding since, what was the first day of training camp? July 22nd or 24th, something like that. But yeah, Jalen probably won't do that. He'll probably be lifting tomorrow after the parade. And, there's not a lot to study until he knows who the coach is going to be, I guess. But
that was another thing he was asked about, Kellen Moore leaving. He was also asked about Kevin Patullo, and he said it's hard to say exactly how he's doing a different job now. So It's tough to really say, but he said he does like Kevin and he trusts him. Obviously Kevin Patullo is their passing game coordinator, could become the OC in place of Kellen Moore, who, by the way, will be back in Philly for the parade on Friday. I think that's cool.
Yeah. I listened to part of his presser, scintillating stuff. But it was,
I don't know if you listened to it as much as made fun of me for listening to it.
No, I listened to like the first 20 minutes. But Jordan Mailata was saying he was asked so many times about Kellen down at all the pressers in New Orleans that he finally just started saying, he bleeping sucks. He's the worst. He said, I couldn't take the question more, so I just started telling these guys he was the worst coach I ever had. So he's like, I wonder if any of those guys wrote it. But that was pretty funny. But yeah, and that's kind of the next important thing that we'll get to, is who that guy's going to be, exactly who Kellen is able to take with him from this staff, and where Nick goes from here.
Obviously, some free agency talk in that locker room. A few key guys, Zack Baun, kind of highest on the priority list. I think he's kind of looking forward to seeing what free agency brings for him a little bit. Obviously, last year he was a free agent, but a very different player at that point than he is at this point. So I think he's curious about it. He said he hasn't really even honestly thought about it that much. He's been so wrapped up in getting past the Super Bowl, but he said, yeah, probably next week is when he'll talk to his agent and really start to think about what he wants. Yeah.
And then in just a couple of weeks, all the agents and Howie will be in Indianapolis along with you at the Combine, and Howie will meet with everybody and they'll start kind of figuring out. And if you're Zack Baun, it's like, he's at an age where he's probably going to get one more big contract, not one more big contract. And you want to know your value. And it's like, he wants to be here. All things being equal, he would sign here, but all things might not be equal. Different teams have different cap situations, and Eagles aren't in a great place, but he's a huge priority. But if, for Howie, it's tricky because Eagles have exclusive negotiating rights until free agency starts in March. But if you're Zach, you're like, I want to see what I'm worth. And I don't blame him. We would do the same thing.
Yeah. And this is kind of all new to him. So he should enjoy the process a little bit. Now, you're right. The Eagles have exclusive negotiating rights with all the guys who are on contract until that negotiating window opens up in March. So, when they're at the Combine, those players' agents can only talk to the Eagles.
Right.
Legally.
In theory. There are bars in Indianapolis that are very crowded with team executives.
I've heard that.
And agents. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows what goes on? Well, you know what goes on. We both do. But these next few weeks are going to be really important for kind of getting that start on next year's roster. It's crazy.
Another cool thing Baun
quick.
said, by the way, he said he sat down with his wife the other day on Tuesday night. She wanted to watch the game because she was at the game and she prefers to watch it on TV. So they sat down together to watch the Super Bowl. And as Zach said, it was almost like an out-of-body experience. He's just like watching the game like it's the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Not like that he was a part of it.
Right.
So it's kind of a neat perspective.
Yeah. Somebody asked Jordan Mailata if he had watched it. He said, why would I watch it? I was there. But I had a good little chat with Zach. Really one of the great stories that we've ever seen. And I think for all these guys, if the money's the same, they'd rather be here.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to Milton Williams for quite a while about his situation and what that Super Bowl means to his value, because it certainly increased. And he started talking about, winning, like maybe we can have a three-peat. Like, so in his mind, like he's already thinking, I want to be here. I mean, you wouldn't say that if you're thinking, I want to go sign with the Seahawks or Jaguars or something. So, and he said, yeah, if the money's right, this is where I want to be. Why would I want to be somewhere else? We have all these great young players, great coaching staff.
He was also asked about like being the top defensive lineman, and if that's something that would interest him, like being a top D lineman on a team.
Yeah.
And he did seem interested in that. Like, he's obviously not going to be that here.
Yeah.
They have Jalen Carter. So I think there's good that comes with that. You get to be the guy that gets the one-on-ones. But from a competitor standpoint, I think you want to be the top dog on a team. And I don't think that'll be like the deciding factor for him, but I think it'll factor in.
Could certainly, all those things are going to weigh into it. And, but I mean, once he started talking about, we have a really good chance to repeat with this roster. I mean, when you use that we pronoun, it's in his head. He's going to be here. That doesn't mean he's going to be here, but you can tell how much he wants to.
Yeah. And I think that's true. They just won a Super Bowl. So everyone likes to hear they did something really special, but they're not going to be able to pay all these guys. Mackay
talked about it as well. He just didn't want. He said, "I'm not even close to being there yet."
Mm-hmm.
He just talked about how much he loves Stoutland, how much he loves the O lineman, and I'm not. He said he couldn't stop reflecting on just where he was a year ago compared to where he is now, and he also thinks he can play tackle in the league, which
I mean, they brought him here to play tackle.
Yeah. So look, those are some key guys. And there's other important ones too, but those are the big ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, my hunch is that Zach will be here. My hunch is that the other two are a little iffy.
Talking Milton
and Mackay. Yeah.
We did not talk to Josh Sweat. He's another one, obviously, that's a high priority type guy. Might be tough to bring him back.
Yeah.
Isaiah Rodgers, another one, free agent, showing off his tattoo today. He has a Super Bowl 59 tattoo with the score under it on his calf.
Yeah. Had his pants rolled up. He was so happy. I just didn't. That's another just incredible story. I mean, this guy was banned from the league last year.
This team was full of just incredible individual stories. We did that, the one podcast in New Orleans, but it really is amazing.
Yeah. And even Oren Burks is just another one. I had a good chat with him today, and he talked about how guys in his position, like, you might have one chance to prove yourself as in that role as a position player on a playoff team. He said, you wait all your life for that chance. You better be ready. And if you're not, it changes your career. It changes the arc of your career. He's another one who's unsigned after this year. So many great stories. It really made this team come to life in a lot of ways. I think just so many guys who have overcome some sort of adversity or come from just an unexpected place. And all those guys fit into that, whether it's, Zack Baun, Mekhi Becton, Jordan Mailata, Isaiah Rodgers, all these guys are amazing stories.
Mm-hmm.
They're all champions.
Cool story from Zack Baun. And this is something Jaws brought up on post-game, pre-game.
I think it was pregame.
Pregame. He's been wearing a medallion around his neck going to these playoff games. It belonged to Bill Bergey. which is really cool. Um, the family of Bill Berge passed it along to Howie, who then passed it along to Zack Baun, just as a way to kind of honor an Eagles legend in these playoff games, and linebacker to linebacker, obviously. So I had a chance to ask Zack Baun about it, and he said it meant so much to him that he was kind of giving this to Ware. He said he's going to give it back to the Berge family, but I love that. And you've talked about the lineage of Eagles and how important that is to this ownership. Like, to see that and see like player to player, you have that. It's really cool.
Yeah, it really is. And something that didn't exist here before Jeff Lurie bought the team. I mean, there was no connection between the past and the present. So that kind of stuff is really special.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's some other little tidbits. I talked to Ben Van Sumeren today. Haven't talked to him in a long time. He said he's hoping to be ready for spring practices, which would be a big deal. You will see. It's an injury they don't really think about because he wasn't a star player, but big-time special teamer, had carved out a role on offense, actually. He said next year he will have a new number, by the way.
Oh, is that right?
He got tired of reporting his eligible. So he said he will have a new number next year.
Yeah. There was a lot of we were both talking to James Bradberry for a while.
Yeah, what a story.
Seen him.
Good for JB, by the way. He was asked if he feels like he won the Super Bowl, which is, look, I understand if he would feel like he didn't. He said, I'm going to get a ring. Yeah, I'm a Super Bowl champion.
Yeah.
Which is, it's the right mindset to take.
Absolutely.
He played a big role in the last one when they could have won. He didn't play on the field this year, but he handled everything as well as he could. We all kind of knew the situation.
Yeah, I agree. And I asked him about getting a year off at this point in his career, letting your body heal. He said body and mind that's big. I don't know what the future holds for him, but he's healthy. He's probably the healthiest guy in the league right now. He hasn't gotten hit since July. He might not have gotten hit at all because he got hurt like the first. Well, he practiced a few days, right? I think
he made the team.
Did he miss? When did they move him from corner to safety? That was after training camp.
No, it was during training camp.
It was during training camp. It's all blurred to me, but look,
in training camp. Yeah, he was a safety in training camp.
Yeah. Okay. It's I don't remember the timeline, but
he got hurt after training camp was done.
Yeah, that I remember. But he said, he was asked about not playing. He said they didn't need me. that was good. They didn't, but I wish him well. It won't be here.
He said he appreciates the ups and downs of his 3 years here. And look, there were some ups and downs.
That was an all-pro.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago either. An all-pro, and has the big penalty in the Super Bowl, and then has just a disaster of a year in 23 and sits this whole year. So it's kind of a strange thing, but he handled it really well. I asked him why he handled it well, and he said, I know this is business. I put my business hat on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who else? I talked to all the O-linemen about I got some time with all five of them starters about just what makes this group so special. And I thought it was cool because people never talk about offensive lines. It's just kind of, they're there. Oh, they have a good offensive line. But I think they kind of really, not just their personalities, just how good they are. I think Saquon would always shout them out, which is important. Saquon said he wasn't going to go on Jimmy Fallon if the O-linemen weren't with him.
Pretty cool.
Isn't that cool? And I think all those things kind of added up, and the way they play, they're just such a good unit. And they also talked about how special this year was for them. And I think it was Landon said, I think we're the best unit in the NFL at any position, which I'm not going to argue with. Eagles running backs are pretty good as well because of them. I think they, to lose a Hall of Fame center and do what they did to win a Super Bowl is really, it's really another remarkable story about this team.
Yeah, and have a 2,000-yard rusher after losing that Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
is unbelievable.
And losing another 1,000-yard Pro Bowl running back who seems like he was here about 20 years ago. But
yeah, I mean, that's less impressive.
Yeah, probably. But
because they got a better player to replace him.
Yeah, but it's all remarkable. It's all incredible. And yeah, we'll see what happens next year. I mean, if Tyler Steen's at right guard, who knows? But it's a special group, and even Lane, he's been part of 13 offensive lines. What year was he drafted? I guess 12.
12.
He talked about how special this was, and it was funny because he's like, with my first Super Bowl, and I'm like, isn't it nice to be able to just kind of have to differentiate between championships? He's like, yeah, I never thought I'd be doing that. But it's a really close unit. They all just love Stoutland, and yeah, it was a really cool thing to see them get kind of the notoriety that's not usually afforded to offensive lines.
Yeah, even Jeff Stoutland, like he's got to be the most well-known offensive line coach ever.
Yeah,
really. I mean, how many offensive line coaches have T-shirts?
Bill Muir did. But yeah, he's kind of a star.
All very deserving.
Totally.
But it is cool.
Yeah.
And it should be like that. These guys are incredible. Like the best offensive line in football, and they have been consistently one of the best lines for a lot of years under him. So they deserve all the shine they get.
I asked Lane why he thinks this offensive line has gotten so much attention when a lot of offensive lines don't, even good ones. And he said, probably because we're so freaking big.
Hey, they are big, man.
They are big.
I mean, you have 4 tackle-sized players on this line, and you got bigger at center.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was fun talking to those guys.
I caught up with Jahan Dotson.
Oh, I didn't see him.
Yeah. He said the not getting in the end zone is going to live with him for a while. He said he jokingly blamed Nick Sirianni. He said because he got near the goal line, he didn't reach for it because they're taught not to do that. So he blames Nick for that a little bit. I give him credit, man. Yeah. Like he just stuck with it all year and just stayed confident, and it never wavered. Like I remember talking to him at multiple points throughout the season about his role, and he never got down on himself, never thought that like, oh man, I'm not getting these targets, I must not have the talent anymore. He was just always really confident that when they needed him, he'd be there and he'd make plays, and he did. Like there weren't a ton, but even in the Super Bowl, when you gave him the ball, he made something happen.
Yeah, and that was a big play, that one down to the 1 yard line. And I echo what you said. I mean, I was really impressed with him. You never know how that's going to go. You come in, you're a first round pick. You're used to being the guy, a high first round pick. Was he 16 overall? And all of a sudden, you're like in the shadow of Devontae and AJ. You're not getting the ball. I think he had 5 straight games without getting a catch. I think he had 3 targets during that span. And then, he was tied for the team lead in postseason touchdown catches with 2. So he was always ready. I agree. His outlook always stayed positive. It was really cool.
And some guys will like talk positive and they're not, and you can tell.
Yeah.
He just truly believed that he was going to make plays.
Yeah. And he did.
Anyone else from the locker room?
That might be it. I'm trying to think if I talked to anyone else. That's a lot. I don't think so. We didn't see AJ. We didn't see Devontae. We didn't see Saquon.
Did see AJ.
We saw him in the hallway.
Yeah, he had his son with him.
Yeah, he wasn't in the locker room.
He walked through the locker room.
But he didn't talk. I
No.
mean, yeah. Yeah, that's about it.
I asked Zack Baun who he thinks is going to kind of steal the show at the parade, and he went with Chauncey.
Can't disagree there.
It's a pretty good vote.
Yeah.
Have you changed your mind on this? Who do you think is going to steal it?
I don't know. I feel like it's going to be more laid back, chill vibe than 7 years ago.
Really?
Yeah. I think the whole Kelsey thing kind of took it to a different level.
Mm-hmm.
These guys know they can't compete with that. Did you watch Kelsey's pod, by the way?
Yeah.
That stuff about just how hard it was for him to watch the game. It was pretty intense. I would recommend watching now. I shouldn't be recommending a different podcast, but he's very emotional.
Need any help, Rube? They're killing us.
Yeah, they're killing it. But we're killing everyone else, so it's okay. But no, he just talked about how he thought he was going to be kind of like, I'm rooting for both. I have a lot of friends over there. My brother plays here. And he said as the game went on, he felt really bad for the Chiefs and for his brother. And he said he was a Chiefs fan for that game. and he said he was crushed for his brother and crushed for that team. Obviously, Andy drafted him as well, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it was that they were getting their butts kicked.
Sure.
If it was a close game, I think a lot of that goes out the window.
Maybe. He was very honest about it, and appreciate that about him. It had to be really hard to do that pod.
I mean, pretty hard for Travis to do that one.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. He's also getting paid a lot of money for it. So I guess it wasn't that hard. But I recommend it. It was very, very raw, very emotional. And there's so many dynamics there. Kelsey being an all-time great Eagle and his brother being in the game 2 years ago when Travis beat Kelsey or beat Jason. And there's just so many different tendrils to that story. Definitely worth watching.
Okay. Anything else from Cleanout Day?
I don't think so. Isaiah Rodgers had more stuff than anybody. He had two giant, trash bags, like contractor bags. And they were both just filled to the brim, and he put them in a giant laundry bin and was leaving with them. I don't know what the heck he had.
Saw Reed Blankenship leaving with his helmet on his head because he didn't have enough hands to carry all of his stuff. So he walked out of the building with his helmet on.
That's great. It's got to be a first.
Oh, I did chat with Cooper DeJean a little bit, just about the play sinking in. He said he's seen the play like a million times already. He said like it hasn't quite sunken in. He was asked about that's a play that's going to be revered in this city for like decades. And he's like, yeah, I can't even that's crazy for me to think about. I'm not even there yet, but it was. It's up there. I mean, I don't know where you rank it in all-time Eagles plays, but it's the play from that game.
What if we go this way, like the greatest defensive plays in Eagles postseason history? Like 1 and 2 would have to be the BG strip sack and Chuck Bednarik in the 1960 championship game. I would think. I think Patrick Robinson's pick six would be up there pretty high.
Are you saying in the playoffs in general?
In the postseason, not just Super Bowl, but postseason.
Yeah, I mean, this is above the P-Rob.
Yeah, I think this is 3.
You could argue it's higher. A pick six is rare.
Yeah, I mean, the Bednarik tackle.
Yeah, that's iconic.
That's got to be 1.
But sometimes there's like a reverse recency bias. So when we talk about these things,
I agree,
and we put them in perspective, it's like, well, it couldn't possibly be that. And you're like, well, I don't know. It was the biggest play of one of the most lopsided Super Bowls we've ever seen.
This was like 40 seconds left on 4th down.
I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying there's sometimes
on the 13-yard line.
Yeah.
Yeah. BG strip sack, they were still the Patriots still got the ball back.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also very late in that game. This was, but to take a 10-point game with the ball to make it 17-0, I think those are the top 3. Maybe I'll do a top 10 list next week. Top 10 Eagles defensive plays in the playoffs. Eric Allen's pick six in the same building.
I mean, heck, the Jalen Carter against the Rams.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be up there. They're 13 yards away.
The 3rd down sack.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next play, you can add that as a addendum. What else in 17? What else anything in 22? I'm going to work on that. I'm going to do that next week.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a little break. And on the other side, we will answer a bunch of questions because we didn't do enough on the last pod.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store and nissanusa.com today.
All right, we're back on the Eagle Eye podcast. It's question time. Rube yelled at me the last time, said we didn't get enough questions in, so we're going to get a lot of them in today. It's Eagle Eye at NBC Uni.
I don't think I've ever talked like that.
That's the only way I hear you talk. Eagle Eye at NBCUni.com. That's Eagle Eye at NBCUNI.com. If you're watching on YouTube, you have that QR code. You can scan it that way and send us a question. First one is from John. And let me say, we got a bunch of a different variation of these in the email, on Twitter. Who let Ohio State get away with hiring the greatest Eagles coach of all time as their DC, and in his prime still, too?
Coach Matty P.
And you know what? Like, it didn't start, this whole Matty P thing. It didn't start with us making fun of Matt Patricia. It started with us making fun of a national reporter for framing Matt Patricia as this, like, can't miss, incredible
Hot candidate.
I
think that tweet's actually up on Alex's desk over there.
Because it was such a ridiculous agent-fed
Spencer's desk.
BS. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it wasn't about Matt P. I think, honestly, Matty P was put in a really tough spot last year that no one would have succeeded at. Now, he failed really well, but I don't think anyone else would have succeeded in that spot.
I would agree. Kind of like Todd Bowles in 12, just an impossible situation.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting. They lose Chip Kelly and they gain Matt Patricia, and the head coach is Ryan Day, who was here under Chip. So, yeah.
A lot of connections there.
I wonder if the line for them to win the national title next year kind of went down a little bit.
Next question is from Alec. Hey, Reuben Dave, I wanted to ask another sort of far out question about Jalen Hurts and see what you think. Does Jalen have more Tom Brady to him than we realize? Brady was often critiqued by analysts for not having the arm talent that Peyton Manning or Aaron Rodgers had, much like Jalen when he's compared to the upper echelon of QBs in the league, but Brady was the ultimate competitor. Brady's biggest strength was his mental ability. He beat you with his focus, preparation, and ultimately his execution in the biggest games. People often said Brady would win far before the game even started because he was so good at preparing. I see a lot of similarities between Brady and Jalen in that aspect. Jalen will never be known as the most talented QB in the league, but continues to win and perform at the highest level on the biggest stage. Jalen's mental determination and focus might be his biggest strength, even greater than that of his athleticism. He only cares about winning, and he's fueled by the hardships that would have been enough for any person to quit by now. I really believe Jalen's mental edge to the game is what separates him from the other quarterbacks who haven't been able to reach the heights he has.
Can you forward me that email? That's going to be my column next.
It's really good. Yeah. And I think it was funny because you didn't know that question was coming, and you talked about Brady mentioning the Super Bowls he lost driving him more than the ones he won. And then sure enough, it's exactly what Jalen Hurts said today.
I do think it's wrong to I think he's got a really good arm. Like that Devontae touchdown, oh my God. That might be the greatest touchdown pass he's ever thrown.
He's got a great deep ball arm. I think you can question like if he like all the different throws on the field.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. But like as far as like pure arm strength, he's got a cannon up there.
Yeah. But yeah, I do think all those intangibles, I guess they're intangibles, are really at the heart of what makes him great.
I agree with that. And like we were kind of joking about the psycho behavior of saying the other quarterbacks are ahead of you right now. Sometimes it takes that. Like there's a reason that some of those like great competitors separate themselves, whether it's like Michael Jordan gambling and betting on everything he did in his life, or Tom Brady being fueled by the rare game he would lose. Like I think there's something to that. And I do think Jalen has those traits.
Yeah.
And sometimes like those are the things that matter, you know?
Well, I think those are the things that enable you to get to that next level. Like, I mean, there's a bunch of guys out there with strong arms.
Mm-hmm.
Good question. That was good.
That's true. We'll get to another question in just a minute. Don't want to forget about this, though. Your Eagles are world champions from beginning to end, and every legendary moment in between. NBC 10 and NBC Sports Philadelphia bring you nonstop parade action. The celebration begins on Friday at 10 a.m., presented by Toyota, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Should be a lot of fun as you guys watch that. And now we'll get to the next question. It's from Katie. Hi, Dave and Rube. We missed you both on Broad Street Sunday night. I've been a longtime listener since 2019.
I was on Broad Street.
And I deeply appreciate all the hours you put into this podcast, especially during Super Bowl week. I was nervous that the Eagles special teams would be the weakest spot on the team that could lose us the game if it was close, but Jake Elliott goes 4 for 4 with a 29-yarder, 2 48-yarders, and a 50-yarder, not to mention being perfect on extra points. My question is,
Braden Mann had a big game.
Is this the perfect Super Bowl performance for Jake Elliott? Is this perfect Super Bowl performance for Jake Elliott enough for the Eagles to keep him around next year? He's proven that he can be accurate when it matters, most accurate postseason and Super Bowl kicker, and maybe his price would be better than spending a draft pick on a kicker. Cheers and thanks again. Looking forward to the offseason podcasts.
It's a great question. How does the Super Bowl kind of change your evaluation? And that's something you could say about a lot of players. Like Josh Sweat didn't have a great year, but then he just was dominant in that game. He's not the most accurate postseason kicker. He is the most accurate Super Bowl kicker, 9 for 9 in 3 of them, kicked in 3 Super Bowls. I do. I think it gives you more confidence in him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Because, I mean, they're not going to draft a kicker. I mean, just for cap reasons, I think he's likely to be here.
But it kind of has completely changed my outlook on him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you can make 2 48s and a 50 in a Super Bowl, I'm not going to worry about you missing a 38-yarder in a random game against the Jaguars in November. So I feel totally different about him.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. Like, these big moments for kickers matter, and he came through.
And I think he's now, 22 for 23 in the postseason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one kick came this year, obviously. But
54-yarder.
But then the Super Bowl, man.
Yeah.
Nails. And like Super Bowls, you play indoors for the most part. So
true.
All right, next question is from Kevin. Hi, Reuben, Dave. I love the podcast and wanted to thank you for your great Super Bowl coverage. Go Birds. I wanted to ask you about DeAndre Hopkins' comments about the refs after the game. Was he saying that the Eagles were beneficiaries of bad officiating? Besides the one call on Goddard getting hit in the head, I didn't notice many favorable calls our way. I also feel that was counteracted by the unnecessary OPI call on A.J. Brown early on. Am I missing something with his comments? Am I missing any ticky-tack calls the Eagles got? Also, I'd like to point out the class with which James Bradberry handled the holding call in Super Bowl 57. Makes me proud to root for a team with superior class. Would love to hear your thoughts on the refs' performance for both sides this time around.
Yeah, I didn't see the comments, but I can gather from context. I thought both those 2 calls were both needless. I mean, the personal foul and the OPI. The OPI was like, are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. I thought the fix was on at that point, but no, I didn't. I thought the officiating was fine.
His point was like, everyone talked so much about us getting all these calls. They got, whatever. I mean,
I think the Eagles were called for 8 penalties in that game. I think the Chiefs were like 5 or 6.
And the nice thing about this game was that it wasn't close because like it clearly shows it just didn't matter.
Yeah.
Like even if there were some calls to go one way, like ultimately it didn't matter.
Yeah.
The Eagles were a better team and they spanked them. Yeah. Next question is from John. Hi, Dave and Reuben. This is probably a question that I should suppress until after the parade, but seeing Nicholas Morrow active for the Super Bowl triggered me. How worried should we be that one of Howie's takeaways from this season is the validation of the organization's approach to middle linebacker, short-term deals to mediocre or unproven players? Instead of making a real effort to keep Zack Baun, they instead tried to find the next Zack Baun.
I don't think Howie signed Nicholas Morrow to be the next Zack Baun, and they needed a little help on special teams at the end of the year. Howie's going to do everything he can to keep Zack Baun.
Yeah, I don't think they're thinking like that. I don't think they think there is a next Zack Baun.
Yeah, right.
It's such a rare case for a guy to come out of nowhere and be an all-pro middle
unprecedented.
Linebacker. Yeah, so they're not thinking like that. I think they're going to sign him. Now, like overall, has it changed their view of the position? I don't know. I think that having this particular player makes it worth it to sign him. I don't know if long-term it really changes their view on it. Maybe it does.
Yeah. It's a good question.
It's something we won't really know because they got to sign this guy.
Right.
And he's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think they've changed their outlook on the position in general?
I think maybe a little bit.
I think Vic cares about linebacker.
Yeah.
Maybe that matters.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Vic coached all those guys in New Orleans. I mean, with the Stars, Sam Mills went to New Orleans. Vaughn, Ricky Jackson, all those guys, he coached them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's good.
I mean, he's had Patrick Willis and Roquan.
The guys in San Francisco, Roquan. Yeah. But that's a good question. I don't know if we'll ever get an honest answer from Howie on that, but it's a good question.
I mean, we'll see.
We'll know by what they do.
Yeah. Yeah. Next question is from Adam. Hello, Dave and Rube.
Hello, Adam.
Just want to thank you two for all the time and effort you put in each pod. Us listeners/watchers don't see what goes on before and after the pod, so I want to give a shout out to the people behind the camera. Amazing work all season.
There's nobody behind the camera. Dave's behind the camera. The automated camera.
Theoretical.
But
behind the camera.
Down in New Orleans, my man Spence over there, he was behind the camera.
Yeah. Spencer, Alex, Tom, Ben, all those guys do a great job, and we appreciate them.
I heard from Ben's predecessor, Steve, today.
Okay.
Remember Steve?
Yeah.
Steve. Anyway.
I feel like that was something you could have waited until after.
I probably could have.
Yeah. My question is not
forgotten.
It's not really a question, but more of a statement. We have to give major props to James Bradberry. With all the issues before the season started, plus through the season, he has been top-notch. He could have thrown a fit, started drama, been a cancer in the locker room, but he was not. You never heard a peep from him all season. Major kudos to him. He's the definition of a true pro.
Yeah, I agree.
I love the way people think about James Bradberry after the Eagles win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's interesting.
This is like a next-level fan base. I love that.
Yeah, it's all true.
No, it's definitely true. And I think he was able to help some of the young players. He joked that he said, make sure, he told Cooper and Quinion, make sure you have my number locked in. Don't be strangers. Don't get bougie and stop texting me back. Don't forget about me. So it is cool that like he was able to have an impact even not playing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we never saw him, but he was around all year.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to see him today.
Next question from Sharad. I've been listening since 2018. And my question is, if you retire the same year a team wins a Super Bowl, do you get a ring too? For example, Kelsey, Cox, and Jackson. Thank you.
No.
But they could give you one.
They could.
There's no reason. Like
Jason Kelsey, I mean, they were both around. They were both helping. They were both a part of what they did. I'm not sure they would give them rings. So there's some interesting guys like who was here like part of the year. There's some guys who were here part of the year. Devin White get a ring? No.
I mean, like I remember, I'll never forget the 2017 ring ceremony. I'm watching the live stream of it. See, like some of the guys walking by are like, oh yeah, Randall Goforth, rookie undrafted defensive back from UCLA, on IR all year, he gets a ring.
Who's been on IR all year, other than Bradberry? There's a couple guys. I don't know.
That's a good question. Let me look.
I feel like there's somebody. Get hurt in training camp and you're on IR all year.
Oh, Raven Clark.
Raven Clark will get a ring.
Mm-hmm. IR all year. Raven Clark. Byron Young, I guess technically they opened his window for a while.
He'll get a ring. Byron Young gets a ring.
Yeah.
Practice squad guys get rings.
Well, Raven Clark's been around though. Like you would see him at practice every once in a while.
Yeah. Good guy. I like
Yeah,
that.
I mean they can give a ring however they want.
Yeah.
They gave one to John Dornbos. He wasn't on the Super Bowl team.
Right. He was in a locker room though.
He was, but
after the game.
They think they give one to Gilly?
Probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Gilly gets one.
Okay. Next question from AJ. Hi, Reuben Dave. You guys are my go-to source of information, all things Eagles. Thank you for putting in a great season of pods for us rabid fans to enjoy. This is a statement more than a question, but we saw what the Eagles pass rush could do if they weren't playing on a terrible turf condition, just like 2 years ago. Fly, Eagles, fly. Safe travels back from Nollins.
Yeah, I thought he was going to ask, do you think the Eagles would have won if that game was played on a real field? I mean, that neutralized their biggest strength that year, 70 sacks. So it's a good chance.
And you remember the Chiefs' offensive line wearing the 0 sacks shirts?
Yeah.
Sure, that bugged the Eagles a little bit.
Yeah, can't wear them now.
Definitely can't.
6 sacks.
6. Brian. Hey, guys. One of my greatest pleasures out here in 49ers country is listening to your podcast. Speaking of great combinations, one thing missing from the Super Bowl winning team is a name for the defense.
Yeah.
I offer 3 options to consider, but would like to hear your thoughts. Number 1, the Cooper DeJean defense. No. Okay. 2, the 53 defense, in parentheses for Zack Baun. No. Okay. 3.
You think it's like 1953 defense.
The pressure cooker defense.
I don't love it.
I don't love it either. Yeah, I appreciate the effort, Brian.
Yeah.
It gets the ball rolling at least. I do it like I would like for them to have a.
Yeah, let's open that up to the floor.
Yeah, so email us if you have a good nickname for this defense. I think it has to incorporate Vic Fangio.
Interesting.
Like Vic's Big Hitters or something.
Yeah. We were on a flight from the Eagles played the Broncos and then the Chargers on the road back in San Diego. The Broncos game, it was 89. The Broncos was a Saturday game. And the entire media crew was on the same flight from Denver to San Diego. And that was the peak of Eagles defense in that era. And we spent the entire flight, we all were huddled together trying to come up with a nickname for that defense. And that's when we came up with Gangrene. And it's
Is that right?
Yeah. On that flight from Denver to San Diego. Yeah.
Who was involved?
On the plane?
Like who was coming up with the name?
Oh, it was. And
this is an amazing story, and I've heard all your stories 50 times. I've never heard this one.
We had a few, 50 million times. We were on a flight. I mean, it was probably like Bill Ordine, Tim Kawakami, Phil Anastasia. I don't remember who else would have been. Kevin Noonan. Just the beat guys were all on the plane. We were like with this defense. I think they had 9 sacks like against the Broncos that Saturday game. And yeah. And I just remember landing in San Diego. My rent-a-car, it was a Mustang convertible. So Tim Kawakami and I are driving to the hotel. The team hotel was in La Jolla. It was a good week. Spent 8 days in La Jolla on the company dime. And so we're in this Mustang convertible, and this car pulls up next to us, and there's like this totally like surfer dude, blonde hair, shades, backwards ball cap. And he's in a convertible of his own, and he pulls up next to us and he goes, "Yo, dude, what year's your Stang?" And to this day, when I see Tim Kawakami, who's now with the Athletic out in LA, I think, "Hey, Tim, what year's your Stang?" Anyway, but yeah, that was Gangrene came out of that flight.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to think about this. We'll take suggestions.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be like Vic Fangio centric, right?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay.
You can't make it about one player. I mean, because
yeah, it's got to be about the whole unit.
Yeah. There's going to be something unique about this year,
and Vic's the answer, right?
Yeah, he's the one common denominator.
Okay,
Clint's hurt. No, that doesn't work.
That doesn't work. Yeah, the Hurt Locker. Yeah, I don't know. There's not like another fun pun.
No. We'll work on it. I'm sure somebody will come up with something good.
Yeah. All right. From James. Hi, Dave and Rube. My question: if I told you that Saquon would go 25 for 57, what would your assumption of the result have been? Also, can we please talk about Jake Elliott's performance, and not just in terms of points, but how excuse me, but just how many of those kicks there were?
Yeah, 3 of them had to kick over, which is crazy. So he's actually 7 for 7. What was the first part of the question?
Oh, Saquon's performance.
If I saw that he ran 25 times, I would have thought they're in pretty good shape. Because
what about the 57 part?
Even if it's for 57 yards, we know Kellen's going to stick with it. That what would have worried me is if he had like 13 carries, 12 carries, and you're like, they have to pass a lot. Why is that? Well, they're behind. So if I knew it was 25 carries for 57 yards, I would have thought they'd be okay.
Interesting. To me, it's just that stat makes it so impressive to see Jalen.
Yeah.
Like, without Jalen playing well, like they lose the game.
No question.
Next,
and how many times have we said like there's going to be a time where he's got it? And I think there was one week we were like, maybe there won't be, but we're like, there probably is going to be a time where they've got to throw the ball. They've got to make plays in the air. The running game is, somebody stacking the box against them, and Jalen just came up huge in that circumstance.
Okay, we'll do a couple more here. This one is from Joseph. What a win. I'm watching ESPN's coverage after the game, and they're blaming everyone on the Chiefs other than Patrick Mahomes. To quote, the protection has been terrible. No one has gotten open. Running game was non-existent. Kelsey couldn't make a play. Why is this so hard for the national media to simply say Mahomes didn't play well? He missed several first down passes, and both interceptions were terrible passes that he never should have thrown.
Yeah, I think both of those are true. I mean, he didn't get much help, but he was bad, and he said it after the game. I mean, he put it on himself.
Yeah. I think the Eagles had something to do with that.
Certainly.
But yeah, he didn't play well.
Yeah.
Even the throws that were there, he missed.
He had a really interesting quote about how sometimes when things are going bad, he tries to do too much. And I'm thinking, God, your teammate's Carson. Have they talked about this?
Carson's telling him, try to do a lot. Really get after it.
When you're pressured and you're thrown off your back foot, just fire in the middle of the field. Maybe something good will happen. That's his advice. But yeah, he did not play well, and it was because of that pass rush and coverage. I mean, the whole defense was incredible.
All right, we'll end it here with this one from Marty. Hi, guys. The season may be over, but your podcast remains number one in my queue.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your content and your style. I'd like to hear your projections for the 2025 season regarding some of 2024's underperformers. Which of these guys you see on an uptrend, which may be gone? So I have a list of names he gave us. We'll just go name by name, okay?
Okay.
Bryce Huff.
He'll be here just because of the contract.
Mm-hmm. I think he'll have a better year next year.
Can't have a worse year. I think he will have a better year.
Okay.
But not dramatically better.
I think we'll play. So, Anaya Smith.
I don't have huge expectations.
I don't either. I think he'll be on the team, but yeah. Jahan Dotson.
I think he's going to be. I like what I saw. We talked about it. I like his attitude. I like his positivity. I could see him having not a huge role because that third receiver is never going to get a ton of targets. But if Jalen trusts him and he's open, I could see him, having like a 30 catch season.
Yeah, I think he'll have more catches next year.
Yeah.
Okay. Britton Covey.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough one because Cooper was a good returner. I think they would ideally like to not have Cooper return punts.
I mean,
and they have a guy Britton Covey, who's really good at it when he's healthy.
Yeah. And Vic has said as much. He said he'd like to have somebody else doing it, but that's a roster spot and that's very valuable. And Cooper didn't show any signs of fatigue he's also 21.
Yeah.
I just turned 22, as we know.
Did he have a birthday?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, it was Saquon, Cooper, and Andre Sam. All birthdays. It's a good question. I'm going to lean no that he's not here.
I think we'll be here.
Okay.
We'll give him a stay or go in a few weeks.
Yeah, very soon.
That'll be. Yeah, I know it's right around the corner. I got to start preparing for that.
Yeah.
Eli Ricks.
There's something that I like about him.
I just don't see a real route for him to get playing time.
Yeah. If Slay retires or is somewhere else, maybe there's a spot for him. But
they kept him on the roster all year without playing him, so that they clearly like something about him.
Yeah. Well, he's just long, and I'm going to say he's here.
Okay. Trevor Keegan.
I don't know.
Yeah, he didn't. He got to play one game this year.
Yeah.
So. Avonte Maddox.
Interesting. He played well, like in his little. Obviously, the fourth down knockdown was an incredible, timely play, but in different roles, backing up when he got in there, second half of the season. I thought he made some plays. I'm gonna say he's back. Okay.
Now remember, this is like which guys do you see on an uptrend too, and who may be gone. I think he might be back. But I also think if they draft a guy who has a similar skill set.
But I'm not sure how many corners they're going to draft after 2 this year. Avante's cheap, and the coaches love him.
Mm-hmm.
Christian Parkey is his favorite guy he's ever coached. So he's not making roster decisions, but I think there's some value in Avonte Maddox. I think he's here.
And the last one is Sidney Brown.
I think he'll be here. Special teams, if not, I'm not sure he'll be more than that.
I'd like to see him play defense.
I would too, but
they got to calm him down a little bit because I think he is a little bit of a liability because he plays with his hair on fire.
Yeah,
but I think there's something there.
He's a penalty waiting to happen.
Oh yeah.
I think there is something there too. I just don't know what you do with him.
Yeah, he was a little behind this year, obviously, because he was on PUP.
Yeah.
You get a full offseason with him. Vic gets some ideas about how to use him. I think he'll play some kind of role in defense next year.
I'd like to see that.
I would too.
Yeah.
All right, you have a question for us. It's Eagle Eye at NBC Uni. That's NBCUNI.com. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. Rube, do you have any final words?
Just that we really appreciate all the comments and Super Bowl week. This is the first time we've done a podcast in the studio since
2 days ago.
No.
Oh, we were at home. You're right.
We were at home.
Yeah.
It's the first time we've both been in the studio, but we really appreciate the support. That's all. And it means a lot.
All right. Enjoy the parade. If you're going, please be safe. Do it responsibly. For Rube, I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.